opponents were, I think, mathematicians, statistical modelers. We've had a lot of talk today about climate science. I compiled a book that you were kind enough to mention the title of, and what was fascinating me about that book was that climate science evolved. 20 years ago it was basically a branch of, 30 years ago, physical geography. Now it's basically computer modeling. Yet at the same time, the majority of statisticians who look at the climate models think they are grossly unprofessional. Mathematicians and statisticians who look at the way these climate models and the way the hockey stick were constructed are not on board with it at all. A majority of engineers are not on board with it. A majority of physicists, non-climate physicists, are not on board with this. So this idea that climate science is this hermetically sealed specialty that is sealed off from the rest of the world is nonsense. Climate science, you have dendrochronology types, you have statistical modeling types, and there are elements of all in the work that they do. But certain people, mathematicians, engineers, statisticians, are not on board with this. And Judith mentioned Science magazine. Nature magazine went even further. They're the two most prestigious science journals on the planet, Nature and Science. And Nature printed a statement recently from a group of climate scientists who said, quote, climate justice, unquote, climate justice is more important than democracy. So that the fake 97% consensus is no longer enough. The fake 97% consensus of so-called climate scientists now has to trump the 51% of the electorate. No science in history has conducted itself like this, and it would be unrecognizable to Sir Isaac Newton or Charles Babbage or the Curies to see a self-sustaining, malign, politico-science nexus supporting itself and excluding all other voices. It is at odds with scientific inquiry across the centuries.
Let me, 2009, August 31st, 2009, then Senator John Kerry, as I discussed in my opening, said scientists project that the Arctic will be ice-free in the summer of 2013, not in 2050, but 4 years from now. The nice thing about this is, unlike theories that can't necessarily be disproven, this is actually a statement that can be tested by actual facts and evidence. Dr. Haber, was it in fact accurate in the summer of 2013 the Arctic was ice-free?
No, it certainly wasn't ice-free, but if I could follow up on something my colleague just said, actually, this is not unprecedented in climate science. If you look in the Soviet Union for 30 years, it was reigned by Lysenko in biology, and he had a complete control over biology. You got fired or worse if you didn't agree with his brand of biology. And that was finally brought to an end, partly because of people from other fields. For example, Andrei Sakharov, the inventor of the Soviet hydrogen bomb, led some of the opposition because he had enough stature to stand up and push back. But most people were afraid. So there was a state of fear that was actually quite a bit worse than climate right now, but nevertheless, it's a good lesson to remember.
And my final question, Dr. Titley, based on your 3 decades serving in the Navy, do you agree with President Obama, who said holding a global warming summit in Europe was a powerful rebuke to the ISIS terrorist who just committed a horrific act of terrorism in Paris and indeed likewise in San Bernardino?
Senator, thanks, sir, for the question. The way I describe these geostrategic risks of climate change, climate is the risk, and it makes the threats such as ISIS, worse. So this is not an either-or. It's not a false dichotomy.
But I'm asking your judgment as a military man if you agree with President Obama that holding a global warming summit was a powerful rebuke to the ISIS terrorists. I find that statement absurd on its face. I'm asking, based on your military judgment, do you agree with the President?
We have to address both. Thank you.
From your declining to answer, I take it the inference of that is that your answer is no.
My answer is, sir, we have to address both the risk of climate change and the threat of ISIS. Thank you.
Senator Peters.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go first with your
Senator Nelson.
question.